Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. We're just going to let folks fill in the room here for a little bit. So we have some new members as well, so we'll make sure to give everyone a chance to do introductions. It being the new year, and a lot of new stuff going on. Um, so we'll just give it a second here. Let it over here too. All right, I'm going to prepare here by sharing my screen. Start with that one right there. And get the chat window up here too. Give me just a minute here. Get all the windows arranged. All right, I hope everyone had a most excellent break. We have a lot to cover today here because we did actually get some things done during the break, which was very helpful. Now, since I see we have several new members here, which is makes total sense. We are still a pretty new working group. Definitely want to give time for introductions. I'll go ahead and get going. Welcome up, everyone, to our first meeting of the new year of the Decentralized Trust Graph Working Group. We are a joint working group of Trust over IP, project of Linux Foundation Decentralized Trust, and the Decentralized Identity Foundation. So if you're a member of either of those, you're welcome to participate here. If you're not yet a member of either one, you're welcome to be here and observe. Just ask not to make any substantial contributions in order not to create any IPR problems. At the start of these meetings, we always share the antitrust policy notice for all Linux Foundation meetings, and so we want to make sure everyone's aware of that. And again, because we have, I'm seeing some new names, we always want to provide an opportunity for anyone that's new to make a short introduction. You're welcome to do that. You know, just raise your hand and briefly do that, or you can do just add something in the chat. We also have one other option here. If you want to provide any background information, we have a bio page. It's just a Google Doc that anyone can link to, and I will, or anyone can write to, and I'll put a link there in the chat to the bio page. You can put something in there. So just stop and ask, is there anyone who would like to do an introduction if you're a new member of the group? Just checking.
Hey guys,
Okay.
Christian Associé. Maybe I qualify as a new member. I've been participating in the DIF calls, which is how I came here. But it's my first time joining the Trust over IP group, so very excited about obviously the work you guys have been and are scheduling on doing. So here I am on my first call here through the DIF, which I'm a member of individually as a freelancer. And I'm considering now the Linux Foundation for a tech that I built with a friend and a partner, David, that some of you may know, but I am not a member of the Linux Foundation. if you want to see the work we've been doing identity work for the last 2, 3 years. It's available at keychain.org. Although over the holidays we lost our sponsor, so we'll probably rebrand and whatever. But we're not here to push a technology. We're here to uh, come in and understand the problem space and work with you guys and to build solutions. So happy to be here.
Excellent. Welcome to have you, Christian. I know I've seen you on some of the did method working group calls. Great. Anyone else who wants to do an introduction? And you're welcome if you're just again observing. There's no need to do that, but you're welcome to put a note in the chat. Um, all right. In that case, I'm going to quickly review the agenda. We'll get through any announcements. Today, we're going to have a brief report. Scott's here. Nikki's not on the Risk and Harms Prevention Task Force. And then the majority of the call, we're going to talk about two new documents prepared by the Credentials Task Force, which have a ton of new content in it. We want to go over and have everyone review this week because it puts together a lot of things we discussed last fall. And then finally, if we have time, talk about objectives for this quarter for this working group because there's a lot happening and we have some big milestones coming up. So before we dive into it, are there any additions or revisions to these three agenda items? All right.
Hey
If
Drummond,
not, go ahead.
since ask the noob guy questions. I saw the link there in some of your in your screen here to the first person project or such. Is
Yes.
this affiliated? Is this a place where we talk about that? Is that a separate thing? What's the relationship between what you're doing here and first person?
Great question. And first, I'm going to put in a link to the meeting notes page because that's where we try and put links in the chat so everyone can get to them. But you can also just open up that page and we'll put all the links there. Um, the short answer to your question on that, and I'll put in a link to the first for anyone who's not familiar with the first person white paper that explains first person project in 80 pages of detail. That is a separate project, and in fact, we've started a cooperative, first-person cooperative that is going to serve as a governing body for the first-person project. Is its goal is to serve as a governing body and establish the first-person network. First-person network is, and we'll be very specific about this term that we'll introduce you to, a verifiable trust network built on the decentralized trust graph. So it is church and state. We are doing standards here for anyone that wants to build anything with a decentralized trust graph. And the first person project is, I call it major customer, sitting there saying, we want to build one of these things. We need these standards. And that's why you'll see a number of us active here at this. But as a standards group, that's Trust ORP and DIF are both Joint Development Foundation projects at Linux. That's where open standards work, open specifications work goes. Primarily, we can do open source. It's part of our charter, but JDF projects are primarily for open standards. So we're emerging standards bodies. We don't do the kinds of things that W3C or ITF or ISO do. We prepare standards that can then go to those standards bodies if needed. So we're doing and generically we call those decentralized trust graph standards or DTG standards. So I hope that helps explain that. Anyone who's interested in the first person project, there's a link there to that white paper, which by the way, I will say, we've been waiting. We've done one revision already last fall. Based on what you'll see today, we're going to do another revision this month to update it with the current terminology and things we're using here. So I hope that helps explain that. Okay, so quickly, before we dive in, any announcements that folks want to share, I'm going to share one quickly, which will sort of explain the little bit tie into the urgency, which is over the break they finalized that there's going to be a one-day conference happening, and I'll share the page here for it. called the H2H Summit on Human Agency. And this is the first conference from a new company being formed called H2H. The founding team for that are the folks behind what became the biggest conference in the blockchain space called Consensus. And now they want to do the same thing for this new space of digital sovereignty and decentralized AI agents. And it will feature first person project and be the first place where there are actually implementations of what we're doing here being shown. And some of the folks working on those are here on the call. So I just wanted to, now it is a little unusual conference. It is not open for, you have to apply to attend. It's the Linux Foundation Member Summit that's this next 2 days at the same location, Silverado Resort in Napa, California, is just for Linux Foundation members. So you have to be an LF member to attend that, and there's limits to how many folks can come from each member because it's about the venue can only take about 300 people. So the same thing applies to this conference. If you're interested, and please do go ahead and apply to attend, and we can we'll I will talk to those folks about giving precedence to DTG members. So that's the announcement I had. Is there any other announcement anyone else wants to make about something going on? All right, always just wanted to check at the outset. Okay, risk assessment and harms prevention. Let's go right to our first agenda item. I know Nikki is not able to make it today, and Scott. Oh, I don't see Scott either. Uh,
I don't
yes,
know
they both.
why you're not seeing me.
Oh, that's weird. Oh, it's because you were at the top of the list instead of in alphabetical order because you must have put your hand up. In any case, over to you, Scott.
Well, I don't have much to say. I didn't go to the meeting yesterday. I had a conflict. So I don't know if we had a meeting. Maybe Sankashan can share. Did we have a meeting? Because I know you had an agenda item and you wanted to put forward some effort around that. So I'm going to defer to Sankashan. If we had a meeting, and I know, you can talk a little bit about what efforts you're planning to make at the task force.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Sagashan.
okay. We did meet for I think half an hour because Nikki had a conflict as well. So couple of things we decided to do. One is complete the pending item of transforming some of the initial work that I had done on a spreadsheet into a format that Trust over IP uses, and the form is the same format that Scott has designed for the risk uh, framework. So that's the lifting and shifting that's pending. You can see that in the update Nikki had posted on Discord, and I think it's on the meeting page as well. And we had a small conversation that we want to dive into in more detail at the next meeting about uh, refining some of the goals and deliverables of the task force to ensure that we do meaningful output uh, within the time frame that we have, because I think some of the deliverables are tied to completion by the end of this month, and that timeline might be slightly challenging given how everyone is slammed with other work as well. So further updates are likely to happen on that after the next meeting for the task force.
There
Perfect.
you go.
It's I know it's the very start of the year, so I was not able to attend the meeting yesterday either. I hope I should be able to be at next week's meeting. Um, and it's good progress, and glad to see that moving forward. A lot of folks are still out this week. I don't believe we have Martina, for instance. Well, I have neither Nick or Martina, my two other co-chairs, are able to make the meeting here today. And Brendan, I see your hand is up now, but just to note, with your sky background, it almost blends your hand up as almost as invisible. So go ahead, Brendan.
Just wanted to say I appreciate the work of the risk assessment task force. Just kind of a technical thing. Is there a GitHub presence? I'm not able to attend the meetings, but if I could submit a couple thoughts or questions for consideration, is there a discussion in our working group repo, or what's the right way to submit kind of asynchronously?
That's a great question,
Uh,
Scott. Is there a GitHub repo yet for risk
no,
assessment?
no, because the nature of some of the deliverables have been, not GitHub related. So we haven't gotten there yet. We have Google Docs and we have a Google, I think, workspace that's been assigned for, for some of the deliverables that we have to date. I would say if you have sidebar comments or questions or input, just send it directly to me at scott@digitalgovernanceinstitute.com. That's a big handful, I know. But I can put my email in the chat and you could just send me it. Okay?
Thank you.
Yeah, and I just put a link to so the rule we follow at TrustRP is any task force of a working group has a homepage under that working group. If you're seeing the screen right now, I'm showing decentralized trustcraft working group, and then you can see we have all of our meeting pages, and then underneath that we have some background pages. But any task force then has its own homepage, and this is the homepage for risk assessment task force. And then so it isn't interesting, and Scott, maybe we'll put it on the agenda for next Tuesday's meeting to talk about adding a repo for it, even if all we're using it for is discussions and posting, PDFs or links to Google Docs. That we're going to be sharing, for instance, a credentials task force has a repo that we've been using, but the docs we're going to be sharing today are Google Docs because we just need the Google Doc functionality for what we're composing. So anyway, we can consider adding that uh, next week.
So
All right.
Drummond,
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
now I see
So
your
I
hand,
did,
Scott.
right, right. So I went to the H2H Summit site and
Yeah.
wanted to let people know that, and I put it in the chat, that when I, looked at the application to attend, there is a fee for the conference, and the early bird fee ends tonight at midnight. So and the 1 day fee is 500, jumping to 900 tomorrow.
So that's good. Everyone should have urgency. However, I know from a thread I was on that is about to be updated and extended early bird for, I think, to the 21st. So
Okay.
important there. Action. So I'm just going to note here, closing this, Scott would put the subject of a repo on the agenda for next Tuesday. Repo on the agenda for the next call. Okay, let's move on. If anything else, Scott?
Nope.
Okay. So let's move on to credentials task force. And again, as you see here on the screen, we have two docs to share that we want to take time to walk folks through here today that again sort of consolidate a lot of the discussions and work that happened last fall on defining or coming up with the overall model and definition for the set of DTG, decentralized trust graph credentials that are used to define a verifiable decentralized trust graph. And then, so the first one is a glossary. Some folks are aware. I'm also a co-chair of the TrustRP concept and terminology working group, where we've been building the TrustRP glossary. It has, I think it's over 500 terms now that we can use in our specifications and documents to be very precise about what we're talking about. we knew we were going to have to create new terms for just describing decentralized trust graphs. It's a new animal that hasn't really existed before. And so we haven't started actually using the formal tools we have for glossary development, which we'll start using as we draft our specifications. But the process is very clear, and we've applied that to creating the DTG glossary. And then we needed to do that in order to complete this other document, which was how do we actually, in a decentralized trust graph, bring up a new, and we have a specific term for it, a verifiable trust community. People and organizations, I mean, any group of people and agents that want to work together, anything from, a small group, a WhatsApp group, Signal group, Facebook group type of thing, on up to, a company, a university, a nation state. They're all verifiable trust communities. So the problem we needed to solve was, well, how do we actually, with these building blocks, spin one of those up? And how does it grow if it grows via invitation so that you have very strong, it's all based on real world trust relationships. So in order to write that up, we needed to really get precise about the terms in the DTG glossary. So these are the two new documents. I will quickly grab, actually, if you want to look directly at the one, I'll put links in the chat. There's one, and let's see, bootstrapping. Here's the other one. There we go. So I'll pop over here and we'll look at the first one, the DTG glossary. And I want to thank, we have had contributions and most importantly, diagrams added by Jeff Turk, who co-chairs our credentials task force, and Brendan Alberto from Harvard Applied Social Media Lab. And so I want to feature those things. They make things easier. So with the DTG glossary, again, the key thing we wanted to do was be very clear and very precise and basically work up our own little, ontology of how do you describe all the core components, all the building blocks of a decentralized trust graph. So I'm going to go down to, I think there are two terms that have diagrams. Let's start with this one of DTG credentials. If it helps, I will make this a little bit bigger. There we go. We can see that pretty well. And I don't know, Jeff, do you want to briefly talk to this one?
Yeah, sure. Would sorry, I'm just zooming in because I can't see it very well. No, I got it. Yeah, this was just to get an idea. I was having trouble remembering what mapped to what, so I just sketched it out here. I mean, all of these, first of all, are verifiable credentials. These three categories of credentials, the annotation, edge, and invitation credentials, I just mapped them out in a bit more detail. Each one of these terms is defined here in the document, so this is just a visual aid just to wrap primarily my head around, but hopefully yours too, around how these all fit together. So the annotation credentials, these are sort of explanatory annotations to an existing node. It's a persona credential or an endorsement credential from one party to the next. So think of these as like annotations on the edge between two nodes in a graph, giving more context about what that relationship means. The edge credentials, these could be relationship credentials, so from one human to another or a person to an agent, whatever. Membership credentials are specific to these verifiable trust communities to other individuals that are members of the community. So those are the two types of edge credentials. And finally, the the invitation credentials, which are used by communities to invite members to their community. We have two types here, the trust community invitation credential. So this would be going from a trust community to an individual. and the trust network invitation credentials. So a trust network is basically just a group of different trust communities mapped together or linked together under one group. So it's sort of you get a slight hierarchy there: trust network, trust communities, individuals.
Bingo. Thanks, Jeff. The this categorization, I know it gets you just a second, hey, Hadrian. The categorization ended up being quite important as we really got down to the mechanics of the edge credentials. And the reason they're called the edge credentials is these are the ones that actually define the edges in a decentralized trust graph. Who has relationship, who, whether they're people or fundamentally we're dealing with people, devices, agents of any kind, and then verifiable trust communities. Those are the four primary actors. And any relationships between them that you need to be able to either discover or verify or navigate are defined by edge credentials. And so we thought it was important to distinguish they're just these two fundamental kinds of those. They can be annotated, and the annotations are very important, whether you're going to assert a persona that's separate, that you want to be, that an entity wants to be known by, especially people. Personas they want to be able to share to do intentional correlation across trust communities. And endorsement credentials, of course, that's how you start to build up and use the decentralized trust graph for reputation assertions of any kind. So these two categories were the things we were focused on last fall. When we then got to, well, how do you bootstrap one of these trust communities or a trust network for that matter? That's when we realized we needed invitation credentials that also, all of these have a very similar structure. And you'll see in the on the DTG bootstrapping document that we always go through, and for every time we say one of these credentials is issued, we say what's the decentralized identifier of the issuer, what's the decentralized identifier of the target, the recipient. Now I'll stop there because there are two hands up. Hadrian, you're first. And
Thanks,
welcome,
Drummond.
Hadrian, by the way.
Oh, thank you so much. I have to sort out my relationship with, I think, um, Linux Foundation, all that stuff. So I'm joining as a guest today. But thank you so much, Drummond. Very short question. Looks great. I have two models coming from different areas that are somewhat similar to this, but more complex in some ways and much simpler in others. And I would like to align what I have with this for a project I'm working on. The question is, are there any schemas or something actionable that I can try to work with and
So
provide feedback?
yes, the answer is yes. And maybe I might ask Brendan or Jeff or someone to put in the chat a link to the credentials task force does have a GitHub repo, and there's a set of documents there and discussions of everything we're talking about here. That's sort of the raw material we use to create the glossary, and this other document will show you. There is, I think, one of our objectives this month, starting this month, is to actually move into the working draft stage for this next thing you see here on the screen, the DTG credential specification. And so, in that spec, this glossary will be part of that spec. These diagrams will be part of that spec. But what that spec will do is actually provide schemas for all of these credentials, and also definitions of the requirements for the decentralized identifiers that they use. And I'm going to just quickly point out that we have that is called DTG verifiable identifier. So I'm going to click right down here, and you're going to see that all the discussions last fall have come down to these four fundamental. They're there's nothing different about the DIDs themselves. We're strongly leaning to self-certifying identifiers for all this. But the roles of these four different types of DIDs are very distinct and designed to work with these credentials. So those are the two key things, and we will be defining the requirements around those DIDs and the requirements about those credentials in that spec. Yeah, and Brendan's pointing out we're going to create now, based on these, a 03 revision of the document that's in there and that's currently in that repo, and then all of that will go into. We'll talk about that at the end of the meeting. I'd like to see us have a full working draft of that spec this month. I think we're at that point. But I'll stop now and go to the next one. Jonathan, go ahead.
Happy New Year, everybody. This document's really helpful for starting to understand some things, but it does raise questions. Where is the personhood credential in this model?
Great question. One of the key things that happened in December as we sort of worked out the model, and we were calling it, anyone looks at the first person white paper now, it just talks about two types of credentials, personal credential and verifiable relationship credential. The short answer is it's this one here, the verifiable membership credential. What we realized, Jonathan, was that what the personhood credentials paper, and anyone who hasn't seen that, I'm gonna put in credentials. This is a paper that came out a year before we started. I think that's the link to it. Described the need for this kind of credential, called it a personhood credential. And what we've discovered in building this decentralized trust graph model is that is a very specific type and sort of atomic a type and need of a verifiable membership credential. What you're doing is you're verifying you are a unique person in a verifiable trust community. So that's the short answer. I'm realizing I don't have time to take a note, but we will add that note to it. Literally, we didn't, because we're so focused on defining these, I didn't add an entry for personhood credential, and we need to do that because that's the one we're talking about.
The other question I had is whether endorsement and relationship are also just versions of the same thing, that sort of by definition, don't you need a relationship with someone in order to give them an endorsement?
Yes, you absolutely do. That's why the separation of the annotation credentials. You can't issue an annotation credential unless you have an edge credential with the other party. That's how they build on each other. Jeff prepared this diagram. If I had done it, I would have put the edge credentials and had it read left to right in this order. But arguably, the way you actually get set up, as we'll cover shortly, is to build one of these, to build a verifiable trust community. You're bootstrapping up using invitation credentials. So you could argue any order of these things. I'm just thankful that Jeff put together the diagram so you could see the relationships.
Oh yeah, no, the diagram's super helpful because it allows for these kinds of questions.
Exactly. I
was doing it alphabetically purely.
That makes total sense. All right, Steve, go ahead.
Yeah. So, I mean, my question is, so first of all, is the member DID part of the verifiable membership credential?
Yes. So the one thing you will say, and this is the structure that we follow in Trust RP glossaries and the custom terminology working group, every definition that uses a term is cross-linked to that term. That's why we use Google Docs to do this, because it makes it so easy. So if you wanted, for instance, to see, okay, well, what is really in an edge credential, right? So I can go straight to that term and see, okay, there are two types of edge credentials, verifiable relationships and verifiable member credentials. Let's look at a verifiable relationship credential. And it's very specific. Oh, a verifiable relationship credential contains either a relationship did or a membership did. It just depends on the kind of relationship.
Okay.
Oh, good. Jeff's annotating this, and thank you. Thank you. That's exactly what we need to do. So this, I highly recommend. They're about, it's 7 or 8 pages. There are about 40 terms in there, but it is literally an ontology of everything we've been discussing. I'd say between those of us working over the break, there's a good 10 or 20 hours of work just, okay, let's get all the terms and make sure they're all aligned, and every term in here that references another term is cross-linked to that term. Now, some of these definitions, like reputation system, actually go out to Wikipedia, and some of them go to the existing trustworthy glossary. Those are manually added. When we go to the formal specification, we're going to use a tool called SpecUpT, where all these, there's an internal glossary. You can reference external glossaries. It's quite powerful. But this,
Yeah, like I said in the chat, I just put my whole taxonomy for agent systems into SpecUpT and published it. So,
oh, fantastic! You're there.
okay, so that's why I'm ready for the call tomorrow. So,
Fantastic.
yeah. So, but I'm getting off topic. So the other thing I want to know about is revocation. Like, okay, so now you have membership. How do you lose membership, and how is that handled by the system?
Perfect topic. If we could, hold that off for part 2 when we look at the bootstrapping. And I'll say right now, it is something we have to tackle. But it is in the future work section of that document. But we'll get to that. That's absolutely critical. All of these, by the way, that we need, to specify the protocols that are used to standardize for, obtaining and exchanging and presenting these credentials, and the zero knowledge proof proofs that need to be able to be delivered. That's all part of our work, step by step. Welcome to our roadmap for this year. All right, before we go any further, Adam.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm trying to understand. So I was reading about the verifiable relationship credential, and it says that it could be you can use your membership DIDs, but you don't have to. And I'm trying to imagine why you wouldn't do that, and what is the point of having a VRC that doesn't use membership DIDs, that just uses our DIDs?
Absolutely,
and
excellent question.
Where would you use that?
Yeah, I'll give you a short answer, but then encourage you to read the whole glossary, because that was one of the things, if you look at the first one white paper today, we just talk about relationship credentials using RDIDs, and then personal credentials, which are now a type of membership credential, which use MDIDs. Why do we come to that? Short answer is a relationship a credential and a pure RDID is independent of any trust community. It's just peer-to-peer relationship between any two actors that decide to have such a relationship, right? You just meet someone, you don't know what trust communities you're part of, they're part of, but you just say, hey, let's form a relationship. And you do that. Now, what we realized, again, working with the whole idea, we need proof of personhood in the end, is that we can't produce proof of personhood just from a relationship. What you need to say is, can you prove you're part of at least one trust community that issues membership credentials under the requirements that it's a personhood credential? That's how you can get to proof of personhood. So,
okay, got it.
That's my short answer. Yeah.
But we haven't defined any sort of discovery method that can, when two people are forming a VRC, they have to find their own way to discover which communities or which decentralized trust graphs they have in common.
Which I think the word you're looking for is which
VTN. Yes.
Well, there's VTCs. What community you're part of? VTCs are part of VTNs, verifiable trust networks. Yeah. First person network, that's what we're building as a VTN. we will absolutely, to solve that problem, be defining what is the protocol for establishing not just the relationship, but then that discovery element, so that basically besides VTN, the two terms that I think the most important new terms in all of this are down here at the end. So we do have the definition we've been talking to you about: verifiable trust community and verifiable trust network, right? Sort of the two layers of the graph that, you can literally think verifiable trust networks are composed of verifiable trust communities, which are composed of people and agents and devices. Okay. That's another diagram, by the way, that I think would be very helpful at the introduction to this. But the other thing we realized, again, I want to have time to go to the second document now, walk you through that, is to say, all right, but how are the protocols actually working between all the participants in this? And that we said we need to be able to talk about agents that are operating to execute those protocols. And we need a term that is not specific to what kind of agent is that. Is it a user agent? Is it an AI agent? Is it a server agent? So we said, okay, we're going to call them verifiable trust agents, and have a generic term. And you can see, and are we talking, is it a local agent? Is it a cloud agent? We need to be able to be specific about those things. So I propose here that we finish and give an action item to everyone attending. Please, if you can, take time, read through it. It's not that long. Add comments. This is a Google Doc that is open to anyone to add comments to. Comments or suggestions. This is a working document. Once it's mature enough, then we'll move it over into Spec Up T as part of our and we may it may be a separate deliverable from us as just the DTG glossary document. Whether we use all of our specs, reference that and the DTG main, or whether we incorporate it in those spec documents. So anyway, I hope that helps answer that question. These are all exactly the kind of questions these documents are written to address. All right, given we have only 17 minutes left, I want to go to the other documents, VTC bootstrapping. This is a little longer document. How long are we up to here? Okay, yeah, this is a 15-page, but it's because there's some good-sized diagrams in that. What you'll see here is this is to answer the question, and I'm going to go straight down to this note we have right here. So this document is motivated, and the 4 phases you'll see are to answer the question. There is an active implementation going on right now of everything we are discussing. It's called the Linux Kernel Maintainer Verification Project. And if you're new to what we're doing here, one of the reasons we established the working group is that the Linux Foundation is our #1 customer, not just Linux Foundation, the Linux Kernel Project. And they have been very explicit. We currently use a GPG Web of Trust. If you're interested in that, just go to the Wikipedia entry on that. And it's all based on 25-year-old technology with GPG. They want to replace it with DTG credentials, and which the first person we've always called first person credentials. They want and that work is ongoing. So as we define these credentials, we have the question: how do they actually spin up a new replacement Web of Trust for the Linux kernel project, which has about 65 contributors to it? Currently, their Web of Trust is any new contributor has to have their PGP key signed or GPG key signed by 2 other contributors. That's how it works. So we needed to answer the question, all right, well, how will it work with DTG? How do you spin up a new trust community? And of course, we need to answer that for any verifiable trust community. But this one is very, very, it's like folks are asking this question right now. They're ready to write the code because we want to show this at the H2H Summit and the Linux Foundation Member Summit at the end of February. So that was our motivations for doing this. And again, this got gestated over the holidays and just grew a long ways. This diagram, I don't know if I can get it large enough I'm going to try and make it larger here. let me go up just so you can see the four phases that we're talking about. Yeah, anyway, just as a high level, if the principle is you build a strong trust community by invitation only, right? People don't just come in and say, I'm here, I'm signing up for an account. No, it doesn't work that way. It is built on trust relationships with those invitation credentials. So the four phases that we basically broke it down into is there's got to be some founding or initiation phase that actually bootstraps the thing. Whoever starts that then can invite what we call the community trust anchors. Whoever else is going to be empowered to start inviting others, they begin inviting other members. And then if the community wants to follow that policy, at that point in phase 4, members can start inviting other members. And obviously you could tree that out further if you wanted to, but we wanted to make it clear these are the 4 phases for a community like the Linux kernel community. And what this document does is define, okay, what are the requirements at each of those steps using all of the terminology there. So we turn around and have a high level, okay, what's going on in each of these 4 phases. I think that whole thing sort of fits right here that I just explained. And actually, Jeff, I noticed your diagram above still says founding, but you were the one who suggested we call it initiation. So
Yeah,
anyway,
that's an old one. I'll plug in a new one.
okay, that sounds good. Anyway, these are the 4 overall phases, and then what this document does is go. I like this actually. By the way, it was Brendan who said, "Let's add this overview of the whole thing." And Brendan, you wrote this sort of conclusion of that section. Do you want to speak to this? I just think it's quite elegant.
I mean, yeah, it's nothing, not rocket science, but just, the idea of layered trust. So it's subsequent phases of bootstrapping. And, after each layer, you have the raw materials that you need for that next phase, so that the growth can be organic and yet rigorous, if you will.
I love that. Ensuring the community still stays secure while allowing organic growth. Yeah, this is really cool. So anyway, the structure of the document very straightforward. For each phase, we say, okay, what are the starting assumptions you need for that phase, and what you'll see is it's actually all of this is policy driven. So at the outset, and for the assumption, we're saying phase 1 bootstrapping policies will either be hard coded into the tool, the virtual trust agent you're using, which for an individual, the term we're using is a personal network manager, or potentially a PNM could be set up to give you a selection of those policies or download them or whatever, right from the outset. But then we go through the steps, and then thank you to Brendan for each of these. We've actually done the sequence diagram, which for this one is pretty straightforward, right? The initiator uses that personal network manager and say, okay, oh, something, I guess it's being annotated as we speak, so I have to move around. Let me get back here. There it is. Okay, now I have to, wait a second. Yeah, once annotations come in, it adds that window. Okay, so the initiator needs to choose their own MDID. Remember, you're never assigned an identifier in a decentralized trust graph. You're always sharing and asserting your DID as your half of the relationship. In this case, the initiator use their own personal network manager, select their own MDID or generate it or select it because they may want to use an MDID they already have in another trust community. That's their choice, right? This is intentional correlation. The PNM will generate the community DID that's going to identify that community. That's why we call it a CDID, and initiates a trust task with this assumption we're following here is there will be a virtual verifiable trust agent, VTA, for that trust community in the cloud hosted by some DTG service provider. That, of course, could be the community itself. It's totally up to them. But in any case, that's when they will spin up the verifiable trust agent, which first task is issue the verifiable member credential to the first member, which is the initiator. That same thing gets written to the trust registry that will be used by that verifiable trust community, so that they actually you're able to verify. We know we obviously know the CDID for the trust community and the MDID and role of the initiator. There you are. Now I'm not going to. We won't necessarily have time to do this for all of the diagrams, but that's the very, very simple first one. Once you've got that first layer, as Brendan said, now you're ready to invite the trust anchors. And this is where the invitation credentials come in. And again, what we explain is, okay, what will the policies be for this next phase? And that is up to the trust community. The example policies we use here are simply that anyone that can present a proof of a VTC invitation credential issued by the initiator, and that specifies that in that initiation credential, this person is a community trust anchor. They will have that role. Okay, those are the two purposes of that VTC invitation credential, is to provide cryptographic proof. I've been invited by the initiator, and he wants me to have the role of community trust anchor. And so obviously there are a few more steps, but they pretty much fit, I think, all on this screen. And you can see that each time we talk about any credential being issued, we are specific. What is the DID of the issuer? What is the DID of the target? And so you can follow that all the way through. And again, I think I can make this one bigger. Oops, as big as I can make it there. I guess I'm gonna try one more. Does that still make it on the screen? Yes, it does. Okay. So yeah, so in this case, we've added, now you've got the community trust anchor. The initiator first basically sends a relationship invitation. This is not a verifiable credential. It's something we have to define in the trust task protocol that will be used. If the community trust anchor accepts the invitation, their personal network manager is then going to have them select or generate their MDID that they're going to use in that trust community, okay? Which could be specific to that trust community, or it could be, I want to be known as the same, I want to use the same identity as I'm using in some other trust communities. An example of this is, take a corporation, a large corporation that is going to have all of its divisions and groups and everything else all represented as verifiable trust communities, right? From largest group down to smallest, they want a hierarchical set. Well, an employee in most cases is going to want to be identified as the same employee across all of them. So they would have one MDID in the corporation, and then reuse that in all the groups that they are part of. Other communities, totally different. You know, social communities where you want to control your persona would have different policies as to how that would work. In any case, once they've selected their MDID, the community trust anchor is also, what's this next one? Oh, I see, there's that direction. So the trust anchor, this is the exchange that happens between the trust anchor and the initiator. They're each issuing verifiable relationship credentials to each other with their MDIDs. That is what puts in place the relationship that now the initiator can issue that verifiable invitation credential, the VTC invitation credential. So once the community trust anchor has that, they present a proof of it to the verifiable trust agent for the community, and it will it'll verify, yes, the initiator is in the trust registry. They'll verify the signatures on both of these MDIDs here, and if that's all in place, the community trust anchor will be issued their membership credential, and a record will be written to the trust registry that, guess what, we have a new community trust anchor with this MDID. There you have it. And again, thank you, Brendan. These sequence diagrams make it much easier to follow through than the written steps. I'm not proposing you can then follow the document. I'll get back down to a more reasonable size here. I'm Obviously, we have the same thing for phase 3, where now community trust anchors are inviting members, and then all the way to phase 4. And in phase 4, again, this is all policy driven. So whatever policies the community decides on and are supported by the verifiable trust agent and its policy enforcement point, is how that community will decide to grow. And so these again reflect conversations about the requirements of the Linux kernel maintainer project. What they said is, once we get beyond that ring of 65, we want to, we've got up to a couple thousand contributors to Linux kernel code. How do we extend the community out to them and not have to have everyone know everyone else directly? And so they said, can we use commercial identity verification providers? And so the policies for that, for this stage for them, for this member growth stage, would just say they'll issue a VMC if someone has an invitation from another member, they have 2 other verifiable relationships with other members, and they have an identity verification credential from an approved identity verification provider. And that provider has to be approved, and that approval is, well, the providers is added to the trust registry. So now you have everything necessary for this process to work, and for it to grow organically, knowing that new members not only are known by existing members, but then have gone through an IDV if that's what that community wants. I'm stopping there. Just that's the walkthrough. I want to point out we got to the point where there's 3 parts at the end of the document here. We can see what are the open issues, and you can see one of them on there. Steve, is revocation. We haven't. There's a whole bunch of questions that we'll be tackling about that. Obviously, the proofs that are involved, the ZKP proofs involved at each stage where you're providing those proofs is something we have to define. And did document storage and access. So these are all things we know we're going to be working on and that will be part of our specifications. Then we have a related considerations section, just goes into, okay, what's the rest of what's all got to be tackled on this? How do you do policy development? Margin Novotny said, well, there's a whole pre-processing stage of the humans involved with the verifiable trust community. How do they figure this out and decide to go do it? And then, of course, user experience. And we also know that we have not yet tackled witness credentials, which we talked about a lot last fall. Can you have a witness that you have established a verifiable relationship? How we'll interact with the trust registries and the trust repeat trust query protocol, and then how does the whole process work at the verifiable trust network level, which is a mirror of we're proposing it be a mirror just done at the community level versus individuals for verifiable trust networks. That completes the walkthrough of these two docs. The action item I would like to ask for everyone is, if you can, over the next week, review these, add comments, suggestions. We'll take sort of the key questions that come up. So I just see Brian's comment. You have several in-depth questions about bootstrapping as a reform or meetings more dedicated to this part of the project. The short answer is, I think, do I have it right here? The place where we're holding these discussions is the discussions area of the Credential Task Force. I will put in this link in the chat right now. Oops. There you go. And I will take the action item. I've got some follow-on meetings, but later this morning, I will start a new thread there with, again, the links to these docs and everything that we've been discussing are already in the meeting page here, for which, wow. I have to say this is the first meeting where I can't take a snapshot of the attendees, which I always try and do. because a single snapshot is not long enough. We're getting good attendance here. Anyway, I'm going to do that right now just to get majority of the attendees in here. And then I'm going to hit update and just make sure to share with everyone the meeting notes page again, because it has links to everything that we've talked about here. So again, Brian, to answer your question, yes, use that repo. I will start a discussion there. I'll start one for the glossary and one for the Bootstrap document. And therefore, any questions you have or suggestions where you want to go deeper than just adding a comment to the doc, pile in there. And always, of course, feel free to start any discussion that you separately want to have. Really appreciate it, everyone. I know we're at time, and I hope this has been helpful. I certainly feel like it was a very productive break to get these things together. We didn't have time to talk about, on the next call, we'll talk about our objectives for the rest of the quarter, but I think we got our work cut out for us. So appreciate having everyone here, and have a good start to your new year.
Thank you.
Yes? Is that Carly?
It is Carly.
Carly, how you feeling?
Fucking hell.
Oh, you're still down. Oh no.
Yeah, it's not good.
Oh.
But I sat in on the meeting to listen in,
Yeah.
and I was just thinking, as somebody who is more outside of this, later, it would be really cool to tell a story about, like, this is all the underlying tech, but what does it look like when I'm a new person and I join something, and how does it work? Like a story.
Oh, beautiful. Absolutely. The good
Because
news,
I
Carly. Yeah.
I can't do any, I couldn't tell you a story from all these pieces yet.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I
yeah.
would,
Exactly. It's sort of it's a little that folks have been using the analogy. Okay, you've got all Lego blocks, but what are you building? And show me a Lego
yeah,
sculpture, right? And
yeah,
that is exactly right. Of course, by the time we get to the February events at the end of February, that is a story. That event will be using this in a call it proof of concept mode. They won't be permanent, but so we have
yeah,
a long ways to go in these next 2 months, which is why we need you to get better quickly.
yeah.
I would
So
add that a
yeah,
story to have would be the community side as well. Say I want to start a community. What does that look like too?
Yes,
Because
yeah,
a
that's the
hundred
other half
percent
of the coin,
exactly.
other side of the coin.
And
yeah,
that beautifully gets into, sort of the work of the first person cooperative, because when we get to that point, we're not aiming to get to that point until I'll be specific, September. But when we get to that point and there are several personal network managers available, it starts. And once it starts, this is decentralized trust network. There's no controlling. It's like the web, right? So our targets are those trust communities. And by the way, if you know of any trust community where like, oh, I know someone who would want to start with this, yeah, let us know,
I
because
have a trust
that's
community actually. I organize a local Linux user group, and a number of our members are security enthusiasts, privacy enthusiasts, decentralized enthusiasts, and so on. And so I'm thinking in particular. Granted, I want to use this for Quai for our distributed AI project, but I could very easily use this with our current community. Um, and we could do some really ad hoc things to begin with, almost as like prototypes before even the spec is finished, because we have the flexibility to kind of go back and kind of redo it if it's not working right.
exactly beautiful.
Drummond.
So
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you think you remember the presentation I gave about Orchid, which was kind of like
Yes,
an intro and then how you would go to first steps of implementation?
yes.
Do you think that method delivered and would
Oh yeah,
be
yeah,
could be
yeah. If you're
reproduced?
suggesting we should do something like that for this. I love that idea. I love to collaborate with you. And Carly, you're really good at making sure these stories are understandable from, the call it the end user perspective. And I know we have to get there. So love to work with you
Yeah.
on that.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I'm realizing I'm supposed to be running another meeting now, so I'm going to have to jump over, but I really
Thanks.
appreciate,
Bye.
yeah, it was, Carly, I hope you're feeling better. And I am still planning on coming to the Thursday. Well, it's tomorrow. Tomorrow's the call for ecosystem
Yeah.
governance. You're still having it.
Have a look at, I sent you on Discord. Have a look there.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Really
Bye.
appreciate it. All right. And thanks, Brian. Thanks, Jeff. We'll talk to everyone shortly.
See you.
You bet.